Yeah, it was a very weird situation, of course. It's a long travel, but yeah, I think a lot has been said about it. After that, we had a very long break. But I think as drivers, you want to know when you are going to race again. Like I hate it when I don't have a set date to work towards. And luckily, at one point we had that confirmation, and yeah, I think now we are just very excited to get going again. I think it's very weird for everyone that we haven't been able to drive for such a long time. I think it never happened. It never happened before in my life. But of course, we have a lot of simulators, and I think, yeah, as you could see, a lot of people were doing that in the meantime. I think it's still very relevant, of course, with all the data we got it in Barcelona. Of course, yeah, we had a little bit of a break, but I think we all know where we have to work on. So it's just a continuous process, to be honest. Honda, for sure, they worked very hard over the winter again, but I think it all looked very solid in winter testing. Like we didn't have any issues. The top speed looked decent. So yeah, very happy with the work that has been done, and it's just continuous. Like, they just keep going, and they're really motivated, which I like to see. But of course, the competition is also not standing still. So we'll just have to find out soon, where we are. I of course have good memories about the first two racetracks we go to, but it's not a given. So we still have to perform, and we still we have to do it again. And after such a long break, it's going to be interesting to see where we are. Mercedes, I think, are still, of course, the ones to beat because they have been the dominant team in the last few years. So we try to, of course, yeah, close that gap. I have good hopes, and yeah, we have some really good tracks. Of course, we are going to attend. So hopefully, yeah, we can make it very difficult for them this year. It's of course going to be very different, without fans, and especially like we had the last few years in Austria with so many yeah, Dutch fans on the grandstand. Yeah, it's going to feel a little weird, but yeah, we'll try to make a good show. I think everyone wants to do that, and of course, at the end of the day, we want to have a good result. Honestly, I wasn't surprised because I think at the end of the day, we are all, people, and we all like to help each other out. So when teams can combine their forces, I mean, that's amazing to see. But also, I think to see how quickly they could adapt, let's say, Formula One machinery into helping people all over the world. Of course, during the pandemic, I think that was incredible, and you can definitely see how professional everyone is. A message to the fans, I think, yeah, it's of course a big shame that you guys can't be there. I mean, I would have definitely loved to see you all there, but we'll definitely try to make up for it in a way to give you guys a good show and a lot of action on the track.
Well, it's highly unusual for a Grand Prix team to go into hibernation for what was essentially 2.5 months. So obviously during that period, you want to retain that sense of team. And so activities, whether it be online fitness classes, whether it be Friday night quizzes, town hall meetings where the staff would have the ability to ask me questions and Q&A and passing on information and updates, keeping the drivers engaged, with the team members as well, were all hugely important during, what was a very uncertain time. I think during, obviously, the lockdown, there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes in, future regulations or current regulations and future regulations. And, there was a sense of camaraderie to try and find a majority of solutions with that, because it was in the interests of not just individual teams, but the whole sport. So things like delaying the introduction of the new regulations, reducing the cost cap to a responsible level. Compromises and sensible compromises were found. And that's when there is a crisis, the collaboration of the teams can be very effective. Well, as we return to racing, of course, there's going to be things to fine tune in this new environment that's obviously going to be a lot more restricted in terms of our activities. So inevitably, there's going to be tuning there with the new regulations for 2022. I'm sure there's going to be clarifications on the financial regulations, which are all new. Again, I'm sure there's going to be further clarifications. So, but the bulk of the big ticket items have certainly been dealt with. Well, from very early on in the pandemic, Red Bull were keen to help. And as races dropped off, they were set their sights firmly on getting Formula One going again. And so thanks to Dietrich Mateschitz and the whole of Red Bull, the effort that's gone into getting this race off the ground, working closely with the promoter, with the guys from Liberty, and the governing body. A huge amount of effort has gone into providing the right and safe environment to get Formula One running again. And not only one weekend in Austria, but two. So we'll get to enjoy 2 weekends at what essentially is our home Grand Prix. There's been a huge focus on protecting staff and protecting all members in Formula One and the host countries that we're going to. So teams will essentially work within their own isolated bubbles. We won't be sharing hotels. There'll be our hospitality units won't be at the races. We'll be wearing face masks during any sessions on the pit wall. There won't be the usual pre-race build-up with the grid or maybe even podium, ceremonies. So life will be quite different, but it's all focused on creating a safe environment. Testing is becoming sort of de rigueur as we are constantly, tested throughout the process of going back to racing. So it's all providing a safe and controlled environment. Well, Melbourne seems an awfully long time ago now, and to think that we're only starting our season at what would be pretty much the midway point is a little strange. But, the racer in us all, just want to get going again. It was great to see the car at Silverstone yesterday. And it reminds you of what it's all about, why we're, working so hard and what our goals are. So it's going to be exciting to get racing again. It's going to be different. But I think when those lights go out and we're focused on our cars and the competition, it's all going to be about what happens on track. It's going to be crucial to be reliable. There's going to be a lot of races that come thick and fast. It's going to be an intense period for everybody involved. And so they're going from sort of 0 to 100 miles an hour from having not raced since November last year. We're going to be in July, so over 7 months downtime for these drivers. It's going to be an exciting first few laps. And it's going to be important to maximize on our chances, our opportunities. And it's an unusual year, but maybe that's what we need to take the challenge to the all-dominant Mercedes who've won everything for the past 6 years. I think it's going to be a fantastic season. I think the drivers, yes, sure, there's going to be an element of race rustiness. I think that, but these guys are professionals. They'll get over that pretty quickly, I've got no doubt. But it's going to be intense, and it's going to be slightly different to what, we're used to, and that brings in different pressures, different dynamics. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I think, we're well positioned to hopefully, have our strongest year since 2013. Well, we all go into the first race with the same amount of points. So I think it's, the pressure on Max is no different to previous years. I think he recognised that, we had a good winter. We came out of pre-season testing well. Mercedes was still the form team. They're still the team to beat. But it felt like we had some real potential in our car. So that's going to be crucial as we head into the season. For sure, they start the season as the favourites. But I sincerely hope and believe, in Max and Alex, that we've got a very, very strong team. And, hopefully we can provide them with the equipment and tools to mount a challenge on Mercedes this year. Well, for Alex, people do forget it's his second season in Formula One, and he's missed sort of the first half of that. So it's been, a baptism by fire with him. But he coped with that incredibly well last year. He seems to deal with pressure very well, and I think we're just looking for him to make progress on where he finished, last season. I think opportunities, will present themselves for him, and I really think he could be the surprise of the season in many respects this year. I think the dynamic between the drivers is very important, and I think, in the pairing that we have, it's a good and respectful dynamic. I think that, you've got experience and youth. Max is obviously highly experienced in Formula One now. Alex still, very much at the beginning of his career, and I think, that balance is important. And I think that we're well set, we're well geared, going into this campaign. Well, we don't really know where we stand going into Austria, and of course, the car would have been developed. There would have been updates at the first European race, in Zandvoort and Barcelona. There would have been further updates for Montreal. So, of course, all the updates that were in the pipeline prior to the shutdown, plus whatever we've learned subsequent to the shutdown, have been implemented onto the car. So there are subtle revisions all over the car. As part of that update process, which I'm sure the other front-running teams have also done. We also have an engine upgrade, as we essentially are introducing what would have been engine number 2, which becomes our first engine. So in all aspects of the car, there's been an awful lot of work go into, and it's been a race against the clock to get those updates onto the car since reopening the factory at the beginning of June. I think it was very important for the team just to get themselves back up to speed, with under the new, regulations with the PPE equipment and the social distancing and everything that was involved, within that. So it was very useful to get the team back up to speed. It was great to see them doing sub 2 seconds pit stops. So it showed that they could get down to their best times very quickly. And I think again for Alex, it was a benefit for him to have a day where the focus was on him. Max was unable to attend the test. We discussed it beforehand, and we felt that it wasn't the best use of his time to subject him to 2 weeks of quarantine in the UK prior to being able to do what would have been 50 kilometers. So allowing Alex the time to run in the car, to feel his way back in based on the lack of experience that he has, I think will stand him in good stead as we head to Austria for the first race. Well, as we head into our second year of our Honda relationship, it feels much more integrated within the team. We enjoyed a great debut season, with Honda winning 3 races. And of course, now we're looking to build on that. They're ambitious. They share the same ambitions that we do. They've been working tremendously hard during the off season, and of course come into this year with higher expectations, and it's a key part of the car and a key partner for us as we move forward and look to mount a challenge for championships in the future.
I'd say on a personal side, the whole feeling of that situation in Australia was it's obviously very unique, but at the same time, you have so much adrenaline building up. I think coming into winter testing and then having that mental preparation, the whole team is having that atmosphere that we're going racing and everyone's streamlined and everything's going in a up and up way kind of thing. And I remember sleeping in my hotel that night and getting amped. It was Friday, it was FP1 on a street track like Melbourne is always quite, you don't sleep that well. And then that morning I was just in my downstairs having breakfast and just got told we booked you a flight back. So it's very strange, and it kind of resets you and you feel like, what's my purpose kind of thing. And you go back and it was a reset, and we just were waiting until we got this date, which is now in Austria. Coming back to the UK, the first thing was really just making sure I think as a team we were very cautious with just the situation. We obviously had a couple of outbreaks inside of the paddock, and I think that was the first thing as a team was safety first. So we all isolated really, and there isn't much you can do. It was very much stay at home. With the first thing I did was speak to the guys at the factory to collect some gym equipment because I had none at home, and just have everything ready so I could top up. But without having a date, you were kind of just living day by day, not having so much of a focus, and to keep the motivation was not easy actually. You're just kind of waiting for news and speaking with Christian, just getting texts, the odd updates of what was happening. But that was about it. It's still, I mean, we're athletes, so it's our job, so we're still making sure we're ready at any moment. But it was just a weird situation, especially because I don't remember the last time I've spent this long I haven't spent this long away from a racing seat until I first started, which was 7. I've missed just the feeling of the speed, being in the car, kind of that process of arriving to the track and perfecting on a lap and pushing it to the limits. It feels very strange to be at home and not having that sense of speed. Doing the filming day the other day was just a highlight of that, where I was a bit like, my God, this thing's so fast. And you kind of just think, it feels so good to be back in it. The dynamic is more or less very similar on that first race weekend. So the first race weekend, you would treat it like another one. Procedural FP1, FP2, FP3 would always be the same. Where it changes most probably is on that second weekend, because you've got a perfect opportunity to directly compare to your first weekend, try some things which it's very risky to try during a normal race weekend because it's a new track and everything's changed. Now you've got the same circuit, pretty much the same weather, and you can try things. So I'm sure every team's going to treat the second weekend with a bit more risk and try some things out, because you know if it's not going to work out, you can always just go back to your first weekend car. If the people in the fastest by a good chunk, it's always hard to get that lap time back. But saying that, yeah, there's a good chance there's going to be differences, and that's where I think the top teams, like ourselves, will have to go through that data, be careful with our feedback as drivers, to maximize and focus on the areas we need to improve on after that first race. Just because there's an unknown kind of feeling of even how many races we're going to do, what circuits we're going to go to, there's not a change in our job, and that's really just to maximize every weekend. That's all there is to it. Being back to back, we will have less time to prepare, not like a normal weekend where we will do some sim and things like that. And of course there'll be tracks we've never been to, but I think that's a good opportunity. I think the good teams will be quite flexible. Same with the drivers, being on top of it and understanding the car and the tracks as quick as possible. And I think that's an area where as a team, I believe we'll be pretty successful at. Just looking historically at how Red Bull are good at kind of interpreting and getting on up to speed quickly, yeah, should be good. I think there's definitely an element to it. The first 2 races, not too much. Austria is quite an easy circuit with few corners and quite a lot of breathing time in between with the long straights. Once we get to Hungary, that will quickly change. And normally we'll arrive to Hungary with however many rounds we've done. And so by the time you're in Hungary, it's all kind of easy flowing. As you said, there's 3 weeks, so we won't have much rest. It does play a part. It does play a part. Hungary, Singapore last year, for instance, there is performance in your fitness. So yeah, it will do. If it's the tiebreaker, we'll see. when you take away everything from Barcelona, Barcelona already from winter testing is quite inconclusive. You don't know where the teams are, but everyone has a fairly good understanding where everyone is at. Adding another 4 months on top of that, it really jumbles up everything. There has obviously been a summer shutdown, that factory shutdown, which means that teams really haven't had too much time to play with it. I feel good. I feel there's so much time that I think with any driver, there's going to be that level of uncertainty as to what's going to happen. I'm glad I did the filming day to get that initial dust off my shoulders. But I'm excited. I think we've all been waiting for this. There's been a long drought. As we said, we're all doing this because we love it, and we've missed it. So can't wait to get started. With such few corners, it is hard to maximize your car in terms of making a difference. So qualifying is generally pretty close, but at the same time, it really doesn't define what happens in the race. We've seen it last 2 years with Max. A good car can really save the tyres there. Temperatures are normally really hot as well. So I'm sure it won't be any different. The main thing is just to wait and see. I think coming from winter testing, we've had a good car. And I'm sure even from the filming day we did, everything feels pretty good. So we'll see.